And so perhaps I could do a lesson on phrasal verbs, and I could fill this board with 1,000 phrasal verbs, and that would perhaps be overkill. I don't think anybody would learn much from just 1,000 phrasal verbs, and in 10 minutes I just very quickly do one sentence for each of them. I can't do that many, obviously. It would be overkill anyway. It would be too much. And so overkill we use for when something is done in an exaggerated fashion, when something is done to too great an extent. It should be watered down, basically, just to use one here that I've missed. When you water something down, you make it less strong. So if you've got some whiskey there and you water it down with some water, you pour water in the cup and it waters down the whiskey, so it's not so strong, it's not so alcoholic, it's more dilute, would be the technical word. The formal expression is more dilute. And we use this phrasal verb to water something down. We even use it for exams or tests. You could say that the latest maths exam that kids are taking has been watered down, and it means it's not so difficult. It's been made easier. The kids will find it much easier because perhaps the government are trying to get higher marks, and they decide to water down the exam, and in that way they'll get higher marks. The kids will find it easier. Okay, a comeback. This is normally used with singers or performers, and when they make a comeback, and it's always make a comeback, by the way, if you're wondering which verb goes with it, make a comeback. It means that they've been in retirement for a long time, or they haven't been singing, and then suddenly they make a comeback. They go on tour and everybody's listening to them again, and they've become famous again. So normally used for singers, this one, but it could be for anybody else who's famous, and it's when they become famous again. A build-up is when something is increasing in size or force. You could talk about a build-up of the military on the border. It means that they're putting more and more and more tanks, guns and units on the border. But you can also talk about the build-up to the Olympics or the build-up to the World Cup. And then it means all the hype which is on TV and on the adverts, which builds everybody up to the game. It means gets everybody more and more excited for the final moment when all of the games start getting broadcast. So you can also use a build-up meaning the media hype surrounding a big sporting competition. Outstanding has two meanings. Outstanding can mean fantastic, wonderful, great, super. But in formal English, if somebody says you have 3 outstanding debts, that means you have 3 debts which still haven't been paid. Something is outstanding, it hasn't been resolved. It's an issue which hasn't been resolved. So you could even be the word issue. Somebody could write to you. Somebody once wrote to me and said there are still several issues which are outstanding. And it was actually a solicitor, and I was waiting to move house. And she was telling me that unfortunately it couldn't happen yet because there were two more issues which were outstanding, which hadn't been dealt with, which hadn't been sorted out. Very useful one, that one. You can use it in so many different situations. Outdated means old-fashioned. Yeah, if something is outdated, it's old-fashioned. So a lot of language in old books is outdated nowadays, and that's why I don't recommend reading classical literature to improve modern English. It's good for the soul, but it's not necessarily good for your English. Off-putting is anything which is distracting, because put someone off means distracts them. So if something is off-putting, it's distracting. And by the way, the words on the screen can be quite distracting sometimes. I'm afraid I can't read them and talk about these verbs at the same time because the words are simply too off-putting and I'll lose my flow. Okay, if there's a toss-up, then this literally means a toss of the coin. And so when you say, I don't know what to do today, it's a toss-up between going to the restaurant or going to the cinema. You're saying it's a 50-50 choice between those two options. And quite often people say it's a toss-up between A and B, and it means it's a 50-50, it could go either way, you're not sure. It could be this, it could be X, or it could be Y. It's 50-50. Toss-up is always 50-50. Ongoing means currently happening, so what's ongoing at the moment, I'm not sure, but in about 15 minutes there will be an ongoing lesson on my computer in 15 minutes. But all sorts of things are ongoing at the moment. There's a lot of media hype about all sorts of rubbish, and so that media hype is ongoing. It's just we're in the middle of it, and it's taking place at the moment. Upcoming means it's going to be happening in a moment. So my lesson is upcoming. It's going to be happening in 15 minutes or in 10 minutes. I better speed up. An outbreak could be an outbreak of fire, war, or disease, really. It's always got to be something horrible with an outbreak, and it's because we say fire breaks out, disease breaks out, war breaks out, an epidemic breaks out. So an outbreak is a sudden explosion of conflict or war or disease, something like that. Pore over documents means examine documents scrutinize them carefully, examine them carefully. Be riddled with holes or be riddled with disease. They're the two main collocations for this. And it means be full of holes or be full of disease. You could also say it's riddled with problems. It's always negative, this, be riddled with, and it means be full of something negative. Sail through is always used with exams, really, or an interview, something like that. And if you sail through exams or you sail through an interview, you pass the exams with flying colours. You pass them easily. And if you sail through the interview, you deal with the questions really well, and at the end they say, you are a perfect person for the job, you've got it. If you hanker after something, you yearn for something. It's the same as yearn for. It means you really want something. And so perhaps a young teenager may hanker after the love of his life. But you can hanker after anything. It's anything you strongly desire, that you really, really want. If you brush someone off, that just means that, it literally means this. You can brush something off your t-shirt, yeah? If you've got some dust on your t-shirt, you can brush it off. But if you brush someone off, you want to get rid of them for some reason, and you very often fob them off with a lame excuse, which just means when you want to get rid of someone and you do it with something which is of lower quality than they actually want, then you fob them off with an excuse. Now, politicians have a habit of glossing over the details, which just means they avoid the details. They skirt around the details. And so gloss over works very well with details, and it's usually used in a negative sense when somebody's trying to deceive you and avoid mentioning the real details, what's actually going on. Now, if something bears on something else, it has a relationship with something else. It has relevance to something else. So, all of these phrasal verbs bear on the first 10 chapters of advanced phrasal verbs. It just means there's a connection between them. If you call in on a friend, you drop by or drop round, or any of the other phrasal verbs which are used for when you just socially go and knock on someone's door. Now, in a meeting, you need to put across your ideas clearly. So put across means to convey an idea. Come across can mean two different things. It can mean meet something accidentally, usually an object, so not meet, but just find something accidentally. You could come across an old watch at the market. But also, how you come across at the meeting, it's being used in a second way here for how you represent yourself. The impression that you give other people of yourself is how you come across. Okay, spur on is encourage. So if you spur someone on, as a teacher, I try and spur on my students to learn as many new words as possible and repeat the grammar and avoid the mistakes, that kind of thing. Hit out at and come out against is when you publicly oppose something, very similar to speak out against. Boil down to, come down to, hinge on are all very similar. It's when you give the reasons for something happening. So you might say global warming boils down to the increase in carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, or the build-up of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. It comes down to the build-up. It hinges on. Here it means it ultimately depends on. Now, I don't happen to think that, but it's just an example. Eat into or chip away at or eat away at all mean erode, and very often it's used metaphorically. So you might say that your kids are chipping away at or eating away at your free time, or chipping away at your finances, taking them out, that kind of thing. Now, if you fish something out your pocket, it means it's not easy to get it out your pocket and then you finally fish it out. You might fish your keys out of your pocket. You might fish your keys out of the bag. And I've put that with these three, which are quite similar, which is when you have a bag of possessions and you're looking through the bag like this. It's a bit different from fish out, which is more like this. But if you're rummaging through or you're sifting through, when you're at customs, maybe one of the customs officers decides to rifle through your suitcase. They've certainly done it to me several times. I must look suspicious. Now, if you dig your heels in, it means you're being stubborn and you're not going to be bossed around. You're not going to change your mind about something. So you dig your heels in and you're going to you're going to stick to your guns. There's another expression, an idiom. Stick to your guns. You're not going to change your position. You're going to dig your heels in and remain in your position no matter how much somebody tries to persuade you otherwise. And if you let off steam, you're chilling out. You need to relax somewhere and let off steam. So you might go to the sauna to let off steam. That would be a good idiomatic phrase to use for the sauna. Now, if you decide to sex something up, it means make it more attractive or nicer. So you might try and sex up a media report or something with some kind of press release which is being made. You might try and sex it up to get more readers. But don't forget jazz up and do up, which are quite similar, because if you jazz something up, you make it more attractive, and if you do up your house, you're decorating it. Chill out is relax. Zone out means be catatonic. So if you've drunk too much, you might zone out, because it sounds like you're sitting there like a zombie. I think people generally zone out in front of TV, films, that kind of thing. If you potter about, you're just walking around somewhere, rather aimlessly enjoying the walk. And so it's a way of walking. It's like amble around or just walk around without any particular aim. Now, if you hang around somewhere, you loiter. It's the same as just hanging. So the kids here in England, they always hang around McDonald's, and I've never understood why. Well, I suppose it's because of the cheap food, but they always hang around outside McDonald's. If you boss someone around, that's negative. It means that you're giving them too many instructions and you're telling them what to do. You usually skirt around the truth, which is similar to gloss over the details. It means avoid the truth. Say everything else, but not the truth. And just avoid that bit which will probably upset everybody. If you faff around, that means you waste time doing something when you've got something really... Oh, excuse me. If you waste time doing something when you've got something really important that you should be doing. So one of my friends at university always faffed around, and we called him the Faff King, and it just meant we were all waiting for him to go to university, and he would be doing other things like cleaning his teeth and then going upstairs and changing his socks and doing anything else small and unimportant when he should be coming with us to go to our classes. Okay, a workaround is like a loophole. It's something that it's another way of getting to your aim or achieving your goal, but getting around any kind of difficulty on the way. So quite often you'll need to find a workaround if something is hindering your progress. If something is holding you back, you might need to find a workaround. Mess around just means play around, and so does doss around. I think when I was at school we used to doss around in English, and it was because it was so easy. We never used to learn any grammar. It's a real shame. We should have done, but now they're bringing in a lot of grammar. Now I really have to go right now because I have a student coming in 1 minute. So thanks everybody for watching, and I hope to see you all soon.